Of all the endorsements of the world's greatest circuits, Paul Newman's comments calling this place heaven on earth has to be one of the most powerful. Virginia International Raceway is a fast-flowing course built into the landscape in 1957. And though the first and current page of its history are as far apart as any other historic road course, there are pages missing from its story from about 1974 to 2000 when the track was closed for over 25 years. Over time, changes come to the facility, including the fall of the famous oak tree that once stood by turn 12, but it remains an immense challenge of speed and precision. Today, VIR hosts Round 4 of the Toyota GR Cup North America eSports League. Next week, Fanatec, GT World Challenge America, and the rest of the SRO series head there for real. Kyle Heyer alongside Justin Prince today. Justin, in some ways, today's race in iRacing is a harbinger of things to come, including the weather.
Yes, indeed. As you can tell, very rainy conditions. When talking with some of the drivers like Michael Yanni coming into today, they describe today's conditions potentially as a slip and slide at the best of conditions. To be able to get grips for the race cars. It's going to be a challenging race for all the competitors to make sure they stay on the track and keep themselves out of being soaked in the rain.
And how they're going to keep themselves out of trouble? By piloting the GR Cup GR86. Here's a look at it. And today, for the first time on this championship, and actually in the real world, we haven't seen the Continental wet weather tires be deployed in a race just yet. Could we see that next week with the forecast at VIR next week in the real world? Absolutely. But you've got some aero to lean on. You've got a bit more rolling drag from those wet weather tires, Justin. But there's the tread pattern that's going to siphon water away from the tread of the tire to keep this thing glued to the ground. But it's going to come down to drivers and their right foot because they're running a fixed setup. They do not have traction control turned on. They do have anti-lock brakes, Justin, but no TC.
And in turn, it's going to be tricky in terms of being able to get the track as a whole because remember as well, more roll resistance meaning less speed for the drivers around the racetrack today. It's going to make it challenging as a result in turn with all the wet conditions to make sure you get the track markers down. It's down quite simply more so to full-on skill rather than just being about just a car and open set. In this regard for this series, and especially here today, you better have put in the prep time if you want to do well in the rain today.
It's all about how the rubber meets the road, and here's the road we're on today. VIR, 3.27 miles around here, 17 corners, built in 1957. Justin, it is the classic North American road course.
Yes, indeed, and drivers have already talked about this vast road course, 3.27 miles, mind you, allowing many opportunities. Many drivers putting the horseshoe as one of the best opportunities to pass for today before you head off the NASCAR bend and through the technical sections. Then it goes all the way up to Oak Tree, where it's very technical, but also a lot of drivers have drifted through there. One of the main areas to watch for attrition today, roller coaster. A lot of puddles in that section, a lot of chances to go off there.
Yeah, it's a big passing opportunity, but big compromise. If you go off course, it can get you into trouble for sure. And qualifying is underway already for our fourth round of the championship. Before we get too deep into it, though, let's have a look at our point standings coming into this event. Michael Polasek, 78 points over Andre Castro. Michael Yanni in third with 65 points. But things can turn on their heads very quickly with the rain and the weather that we've got today.
Yeah, it's been a strong season for Michael Polasek. He's been one of the top drivers for a couple of years with this style of racing. Talked about consistency when speaking with him. But his third place runner, Michael Yanni's been on a tear as of late. Remember, missed the opening round of the campaign. It's going to be interesting to see if there's a close-up from the 92. He's been near identical with Polasek on tempo here at this racetrack for this week. Castro also going to have some fair amount of experience for the rear wheel to cross over for today.
Yeah, and I think we've also been noticing in practice that Chris Sievert and Cameron Martineau are very impressive here in the wet, so could that transition over to the racing? We shall see. 20 minutes remain here in qualifying, and some times have already gone down on the board, and as you can see by those times, we'd expect 206, 207 to kind of be the quick times in the dry, but with the rain that we've got, not even close. 227 is the pole time right now. Polasek and Yanni up in front.
They've been trading times back and forth throughout the sessions. At one point, they're within a couple of hundreds of each other, and it's expected to stay fairly rainy for much of this session. So it's going to be down to, again, that precision to be able to get things right. Michael Yanni getting back to that discussion. Thought today is going to be a survival-style race because of these conditions, because not everybody's got the same experience level racing in the rain. For some, it may be their first time majorly racing in the rain in these sort of conditions, or better yet, in this type of a series. So it's going to be very critical to make sure the drivers make sure where the knowledge of the grip is built up, to be able to make sure they know where to make sure the runs are coming from, and make sure they don't run through a wet puddle, for example, in hydroplane.
And visibility is a challenge as well. Yanni goes back to the top here in qualifying over Michael Polasek, who's got some new colors on board, new team name as well. Joins G-Force Racing for round 4 of this championship, and that brings an all-new livery. It's striking a little easier to see in the wet than we would typically expect. I think that'll be good for everyone behind him.
Yeah, able to make the swap, but he's still one of the top drivers regardless of how you slice it, because no matter the team, he's been able to make whatever team he's been with extremely competitive in the endurance scene on the iRacing platform for years now, especially when it comes to this style of racing. It's going to be interesting how he plays things out, though. He's one of the favorites, as we touched upon, for today, and felt like this car could be unpredictable with how things could go today. With these conditions, it could potentially snap around. He had put in a fair amount of preparations to make sure he learned the S's and the final corners in particular for today.
But while he works his way up the climbing S's now, some of the other drivers have been having a bit of fun with the weather conditions. Jason Landry joins us in the number 5 car, and here's Jason. He's got his umbrella ready to catch all the virtual raindrops today in the Muffield Motorsports car, and I love when drivers just get into all the action here. We've got Jason Landry with the umbrella, and then Cameron Martineau has got a big SRO sticker right on the forehead, Justin, so make no mistake who we're racing for today.
Yeah, I think for Martineau in particular, that might be a bit distracting to say the very least. You can see him just looking up and be like, oh, this sticker's bugging my forehead. That's going to be a problem for him later on after about an hour or so. He's going to be wondering, when can I peel the sticker off? He had talked about looking for consistency, especially since he feels he's got top half of the field pace. When talking with them, he's off the track.
That's how quickly things can go wrong, and here's a look at it. Just at the top of the hill here into the corner they call South Bend. And this is a fast corner here, Justin. It comes at you in a hurry. He was already sideways before he turned in, and it just stepped around on him there. So just really struggling to find the grip on the racetrack. Drivers are going to be hunting for it all day long. We don't anticipate the rain completely going away, but it might lighten up a bit later in the afternoon, which I think drivers will be very excited to see happen.
I think so too, because that means potentially more grip later on in the race today. Not expecting anyone to swap off the rain compounded tires here per se for today, but everything so far seems to be looking good for Yanni in particular, up by a full second. And one of the things talked about by everyone I spoke with was they expected bigger spreads in the intervals because of these rainy conditions. It's not going to be as bunched up on time compared to a dry track as everyone spins around Yanni.
There's Thomas Belleman going for a loop, and I think similar story here. The challenge with running in the wet is that if you touch any curbs or you get into any standing water, and Belleman does both here and drops the tires off the edge of the road, you're pretty much going along for the ride. There's not a lot you can do other than keep the car straight. No big deal in places like Hog Pen where you've got some room to go off, but as you pointed out in the intro, is that roller coaster, turn 15, that wall on the right will get you in big trouble if you go off to driver's right there. You'd rather go off driver's left and have a little ways to slow down before you get that tire bundle, but side note is that you don't slow down a lot in wet grass, and everything slopes downhill away from the racetrack, so it can be a wild ride.
Yeah, because of how much risk there is, it was considered, especially by Martineau, as a really big danger zone because of that. The uphill sections as well were expected to be triple because they're expected to be single file, and we've already talked about the visibility is going to be challenging for a lot of these drivers. Already seeing a lot of drivers just in single car conditions having troubles just getting the visibility down to the wipers, just making sure they can see where they are in the circuit without having to go full drift through these corners like Matt Best is doing.
Yeah, I see just the transition from oversteer to understeer to oversteer again. The great thing about this car is that it's incredibly balanced, and it's actually quite a lot of fun to drive in these conditions, but when you have to really hang it on the edge of grip and go fast too, that's where the challenge is really happening. At the top, it's Yanni and Polasek about a half a second clear over everybody else, but then it's just a couple thousandths of a second from Crawford back to basically Blake Townend in 12th. It's very tight, as you pointed out, how very challenging it has been. Matt Best goes for a wild slide through South Bend, and he'll hold it together, but that has been a tricky corner so far.
Yeah, I think some of the drivers are starting to really get a grip of it. They had about 55 minutes to get practice down. No one crossed the 20 incident point plateau, mind you, in the session. So it's not necessarily about drivers spinning around. They've also had a lot of sessions amongst each other here in the field, just trying to make sure everyone's up to speed on this car and make sure they are on the same page. Andre Castro, way down to the field. He was 2 seconds off the top times in final practice. He's still 4 seconds off those times here in this session.
Yeah, this one might be a tricky round for him here today. Doesn't seem like he's clicking very well with the wet weather, and at least not to the degree that Polasek and Yanni have. But give him some time. He's up in the green, I think, this lap, so he should be in good shape if he can just knock off a couple more quick ones before the end of qualifying here. Also noted that there was a bit of sun in Hawk Pen. Again, we don't anticipate the weather changing drastically in this event, but we could see it change in a few corners here and there, just enough to make a grip difference, especially if it's wetter than you were expecting the lap prior. He can get you in trouble. But Castro moves up to 15th that time through. Still a ways for him to go.
Yeah, keeping an eye on the iRacing radar myself as well. It's still 100% precipitation on the racetrack until that crossover point you talked about in the session. So for the most part, the radar's saying it's going to be heavy for this part of the qualifying session. And Romano, in particular, trying to keep himself on the circuit, not really doing a great job with the left side tires because of how tough it is out here.
Yeah, the other thing, he's got sort of a formula-style yoke on his Fanatec wheelbase there. And so the one thing I would point out is that this is going to be a challenge if he gets a lot of oversteer, which you are going to get in this car in these conditions. You're going to struggle to maintain control if the wheel goes much beyond 90 degrees. How do I know this? From experience. I've got a similar style rim. It makes this car a little challenging to drive over the limit. As long as you keep the slip angle reasonable, it's just fine. But once that thing starts whipping around on you because you got the thing, halfway hung out to the edge of North Carolina, then it gets trickier. So Romano's doing a nice job, though. 18th right now, just kind of keeping it in a slip angle he can control.
Well, you say that, and there's a lot of turning right while turning left with how drifty it is around this racetrack right now. I think for the HJ machine, it's going to be one of those, again, like many, where you're just hoping and just trying to conserve until you get to those drier periods later on in this race today. He's already lost a lot of time in this group up to Blake Townend and to Max Hewitt as they try and shuffle out.
Yeah, just under 12 minutes remaining here in qualifying. It's still Polasek over Yanni. 0.4 of a second now Polasek has run. Someone's gone around for a loop. I heard it in the background. And just like that, I mean, the laps take 2.5 minutes to complete. They take 2.5 minutes to set up. So that's 4 minutes burned before you, actually almost 5, before you even get a time on the board.
Yeah, this is to where you need to be doing well this entire session, and a lot of these drivers are trying to regroup, try and regather their thoughts. It's been a great session for Christopher Sever as well as Cameron Martineau, though. We were talking about the same thing in practice. 3rd and 4th best. Martineau in particular, amongst these two teammates, in terms of these similar styles of cars, did talk about, to me in the discussion point, that he had experience racing in the rain here. In particular, he's run a lot of go-kart racing, has Martineau, in rainy conditions. So there's a lot of crossover that can come into play. Some drivers I've even talked to over time have said they've liked the rain model in terms of racing more than they have on the dry in terms of their driving style.
I found that, I mean, when I tested this car as well, it clicked really, I own one of these cars in the real world, and so I've had experience with it on the racetrack, on a very slick racetrack, not a wet one, but one that didn't have a lot of grip, and it really clicked with me in the rain here in iRacing. So especially those that have experience on track in the wet, they're going to really find this to be an easier adaptation, perhaps, than when it's totally gripped up on the Continental Slick. But here, the wet weather tire, it's got grip, but it's got such a progressive let go when you start to hydroplane and you start to kind of skid across the surface. The way that it lets go is very predictable and very handleable by all these drivers. You just can't get too aggressive with it and throw the car around. It won't respond well to that. It's all about smooth inputs, and you can't drive through puddles either, especially not when you got the power planted. So that's something to keep in mind, especially in the S's and things where you're kind of already, look at the puddles there, Justin. The puddles are right on the curbs, right where you'd be apexing most of the time. That's going to be hard not to run over in the race.
Yeah, a lot of people throughout the session have been doing exactly that because of necessity. Well, just to say that, one of the drivers goes around for a massive slide in that section, but it's kind of a necessity. You can't just say, I'm just going to run the outside, lose 3 seconds. Most people aren't going to do that in that regard. They have to run the preferred groove even amongst some of these rainy conditions. Now, if you can try and limit any major damage of losing time, absolutely going to be beneficial. But a lot of these drivers have been, in some cases, having to say in those sections, error-wise, saying, I have to run in these puddles just for this corner or at least a couple corners.
Michael Yanni back to the top of the board, defeats Polasek, and they've just been going back and forth like this all day long, haven't they, in practice and in qualifying. These two have been the juggernauts of the series as of late, and in this session, in this wet weather, these two are in their own zip code, and Yanni puts it on provisional pole once again.
Yeah, they are getting more and more and more comfortable with this track as they get more and more time in these conditions. It seems like the more this session goes, the more they're able to just find in terms of comfortability. Polasek in particular, you see him with some interesting lines here to try and avoid some of these puddles. I've noticed, compared to some of the others, he's been able to send it a lot deeper compared to some of the other drivers by at least 3 car lengths and somehow make it stick, for example, at Oak Tree.
Yeah, he's doing a really nice job there. He's actually running down Henry Drury, who, when I saw him on the entry list, it didn't really strike me as new because we've seen the PT Autosport Group here in this series already with Michael Yanni. But Henry Drury joins PT Autosport with Precision Racing LA here in the simulator. And the reason why it didn't seem interesting to me was because I've seen his name on entry lists all year long in the real world Toyota GR Cup North America Series, and he will be at VIR next week as well in this exact livery, in this exact number. So yeah, maybe deja vu next week's time, but Henry Drury, P11 right now, doing a nice job. Coming from the sim racing background as well.
Yeah, Yanni talked about actually him jumping in for this week, said he joined the preparations to be able to learn things and was going to now be the second entry for the team for the series. So Henry in particular seems to be doing pretty solid, around 11th spot on the board right now. Just has been running on his own, running his own laps, just trying to get better and better. In final practice, he was able to get as high as the top 10. We'll see if he's able to improve a little bit more in terms of starting position here with a few minutes to work with.
Well, I'm not sure how much this translates, but his background in sports was actually in figure skating, and he had suffered a back injury that kind of set him back in that world, so he's transitioned to auto racing since. But being in control on a slippery surface, that seems right up his alley, and he's P11, as you pointed out, just outside the top 10 where he was in practice. So Henry Drury up in the green right now. We'll see if he can find any more time. Ben Blaustein, this is a driver we haven't talked a lot about this season. Great looking silver GR86 here, but P6, this is really bringing a different group up to the top of the order.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about this where it's the great equalizer, it's the driver skill mindset. As Blaustein, just as we look at him, starts to really lose the back end and go off for an excursion in the grass. This is exactly what we're talking about. You carry too much speed in some of these sections, you just snap around with the slip and slide. In this case, just slipped off the back tires and forces him to regroup.
Yeah, just around and slid off into the grass and was able to continue, but decided to reset back to the pit lane. One of the other new drivers this week, Max Stallone in the number 20. Was very quick in practice, but in qualifying has struggled to put a time on the board. This is his 11th attempt and only has a 2:35.622, which is 4.1 seconds off the next quickest car. So we know he's capable of it, but he's struggling right now.
You just can't get a clean lap down. I think that's the issue, because based on the timings, can at least be top 10. But you see right there, just doesn't seem to have as much grip in the rear tires right now than what he may be wanting compared to what he felt in the practice session. Just struggling to get it to stay on the racing line without massively braking.
And I think he's pushing pretty hard here. It also is raining harder than it was at the tail end of practice, so that might have something to do with it as well. he's going to get at least 2 more opportunities. Well, at that time, maybe only just 1. But the other driver to note, he's struggling a bit here, Devin Anderson. This is actually a home track for Tech Sport Racing, where he'll be racing for next weekend at VIR. And they've got a whole host of other teammates joining them in the Real World Series. But Tech Sport Racing's based in a garage just a couple hundred yards from the edge of the racetrack. But Devin just working up to pace right now here. I think his racecraft is going to come in handy once the green flag actually waves. I'm not sure that raw pace is going to be where this 220 car is strong, but give him the opportunity to pass some cars with the confidence that he's got behind the wheel. I think he'll be in good shape. Nate Stewart up to 3rd place in that number 4 late in the session.
That was about where he was able to run to for much of the practice session. He did talk about just before the driver's meeting that he was happy to be the best in AM, he put it. So he puts himself in a different grouping compared to Yanni and Polasek, I think, but he's one of the drivers in the eNASCAR scene, trying to run the qualified iRacing series as well. Busy times for him because he runs a lot of the road courses now, obviously with this series. On top of that, has to set aside at least 10-20 hours of preparation for eNASCAR competition, trying to advance up to that top level.
And just behind, or he is just behind rather, the 34 of Andre Castro, who's gone 7th quick, so he's breaking into the top 10. And for Castro, remember, he's 2nd in the point standings. Let's remind you of the standings coming into this event. Andre Castro's P2, 10 points behind Polasek, so this is going to get pretty interesting to watch with maybe potentially Castro dropping back a little ways.
Yeah, especially with Castro just not having his best of the runs compared to what we've seen in the drive for him. Just trying to get a grip together, I think, and right now he's had a lot of bobbles, I've noticed, compared to some of the others. And how they've been able to send it in some of these corners. Look like they're working with Blake Townend as well in this respective group, just trying to help each other and work together to close out the session.
Yeah, Townend up in 14th place right now in the RD SimSport car. There he is, the pink and black. And they got 2 minutes and 50 seconds. It's going to be tight, but they might get one more go. Now, remember, we do get, because this is not a heat racing session, when the checkered flag waves, you can complete your lap entirely. But you have to already be on a flying lap. A little bit of a push there for Townend into roller coaster, but that's okay. You don't necessarily want to be on the racing line, because that's where all the rubber and oil slick and all the other stuff that comes out of the racetrack is. Offline is not a bad place to be.
Yeah, exactly. And we're seeing a lot of drivers play around with these different lines. I'm very curious once we get to race conditions, though, how the drivers handle themselves here with how they've ran these lines, and better yet, which ones end up gripping up in the race conditions themselves. Big improvement for Talon by a couple tenths, able to gain a spot, though. Castro up to the top 4.
Yeah, that's a good lap for Andre Castro, a 2:26.584. Puts him just 1.1 off the lead. That sounds like a lot, but not in the weather. That's a pretty decent time, all things considered. And remember that raw pace isn't going to win you this race. You have to make it to the end. And we've said that all season long, but it's been no truer than today. It's so much easier today for you yourself to take yourself out of the race, and you have the potential for someone else to take you out as well, like you normally would. So keeping it on the road, keeping it on the black stuff, keeping it out of the fence are the 3 biggest important factors in this. 1 minute and 20 seconds. Yanni's going to get one more go at it here to try to protect his provisional pole.
Yeah, can he bump it up is the major question. Does he want to bump it up is the major question. 2:26.4. There is 1 minute to work with, so why not at this point? Why not see if you can gain some extra time? There's that different line you're talking about, just trying to avoid some of those puddles towards some of the curbing through Horseshoe, taking a little bit of a higher line, see if that works to be able to get a boost for this rest of first sector.
And in NASCAR, this is a tricky corner. He's going to use the curb on the left and then track out all the way past the puddle on the right on corner exit. Offline braking into the left hook corner here. Turn 5. This corner, you're going to wash out to the edge of the road, but you can't touch that curb. It's not painted, but it's still very slick. And then straight line it as best you can here through Snake. You do not want to get yourself into a cornering scenario here with all that standing water you're driving through. Nice first sector, though, for Michael Yanni. I don't think he's up in the green this lap, though.
Yeah, and right now at this point, he's got the pole. There's the counterpoint, right? He's already on top of the pylon. So what else is there to shuffle unless Polasek finds an extra couple tenths? Well, it's definitely not going to be improving with the way he's yawing out the wheel with how he's sliding.
Oof, that was a little far off track. He might have picked up a 1X there. Now remember also, as the checkered flag flies, that we have an incident limit, 20X in iRacing. Remember, if you go off course, that will count towards your incident limit. If you run into other competitors, that will count 4 times towards your incident limit, and a spin will count towards 2. Now, that's all fine and dandy, Justin, but 20, we saw at Coda, it just snagged a couple of people in round 3. I don't think going off track is as big of a challenge here because you're going to want to avoid the edge of the track so much, but car contacts could get you into trouble with just a few of those, so you have to keep that as a non-renewable resource.
And honestly, we might see some interesting times to start off the race as a result of that, because if you're side-by-side in some of these sections, drivers have already said they do not even want to be in side-by-side conditions by a lot of these track sections. Someone's going to have to run through the hydroplane section. Someone's going to have to run to the puddle, so to speak. Someone's going to have to run off that preferred groove. And for a lot of these cases, that might spark incidents.
Yeah, the other note is as you see the checkered flag flying here in qualifying, drivers can still finish their lap, but out of hog pen coming back to the pit entry here, this camera is mounted on a tire bundle. This tire bundle is where the green flag zone can begin to be initiated. So the leader has choice to go anywhere from there all the way down to the start stand. Now that's a big distance, a really big distance actually. If we go from top down, the camera's on the wrong side of the course right now, but it is a pretty sizable amount of pit lane that you've got to pick for your start. You also can't even see the green flag from where you could start this race. So get a jump, get single filed out best you can, and it'll eliminate most of that drama here. So let's take a look at the results here of this qualifying session, unofficial here because it's not quite wrapped up just yet, but things are wrapping here very shortly, and that will soon mean, Justin, that we go racing.
Yeah, it should be a phenomenal race. As cliche as that may sound, a lot of these drivers are looking forward to seeing what happens in the rainy conditions, to see who's going to be able to conquer the wet stuff, who's going to be able to have the advantage in, for many cases, for some people, maybe their first time in a major one in terms of rainy conditions. It should be a wild race today, to say the least.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely crazy. And I think when you consider that this race is 60 minutes long, there's a lot of opportunities to make mistakes, Justin, but I think the start is critical. As you pointed out, you're going to have to run through some of the puddles and some of the off-track areas. You're not going to get your preferred lane choice. Once you get singled out, though, every other race this season, you've been racing everyone else on the racetrack. I think today, more than ever, you're racing the racetrack.
Exactly, and that's been one of the main things drivers have talked about amongst each other we've seen throughout the week. And as well, drivers have told me coming in, that's what they expected. If you're a good driver, you're going to drive well here. If you rely upon certain other facets on the track, so to speak, in normal conditions, you're going to struggle today. So it's going to be the massive equalizer we talked about that's going to really shuffle how some of these points look possibly by the end of today.
An equalizer in some senses, absolutely. I think for some other drivers, they're absolutely dreading the potential of this afternoon, especially those in the points fight. Qualifying is complete. We'll head to the race here very shortly, and when we do that, we'll bring you the action. 60 minutes of racing from Virginia International Raceway, and I'm Kyle Heyer, joined by Justin Prince in the 4th round of the Toyota GR Cup North America eSports League here in iRacing, using the wet weather that I've actually never had the chance to cover a show with, so I'm very excited about it. But I said in the intro, Justin, that it's going to be a harbinger potentially of things to come. Next week, there is some rain on the horizon. We've never seen these continental wets put into action in a race in the real world. We might get to see how that'll play out here today.
And it's going to be an interesting playing of things out here once again, once we get things rolling here, to see how drivers play this racetrack, how drivers keep things clean, better yet, how drivers race with the pressure up. Those continental wets going to be put to work today, Kyle.
They absolutely will. You've got a little aero to lean on. It'll work better the faster you go, but in a lot of these corners, you're going too slow for that rear wing to do much of anything, so you're leaning entirely on the grip provided by those Continental wet weather tires. And here's one last look at our Continental track preview here where the rubber meets the road as far as where we're going. 17 corners, and the big one to me, the braking zone for turn 14. You're carrying north of 125 miles an hour into there. If you make a mistake or you get hip checked contact off, Justin, you are not going to stop before you hit the wall. You can have a big impact over there. That'll end your day before anything else will.
And you don't want to go off the racetrack in a lot of these sections. We've seen a lot of drivers get loose up the hillside so far, up through 7 up to Oak Tree and 11 to 12. The trouble's going to be roller coaster yet again. They're in turn 15 talked about. That section going to see a lot of drivers potentially go off here at VIR.
Field is gridding, and we're about ready to go racing here. And we'll get a full pace lap to kind of get the sense of what the weather is going to be. It is wet for sure. Times have kind of been the same most of the day, though. We haven't really seen a lot of picking up or slowing down, so it seems like it's fairly consistent at the very least before we get into this event. VIR, what a beautiful facility this is, Justin. It's been around, as we said, since 1957. But for 25 years, it didn't host a single race until it was purchased in the year 2000 and reset, and now holds some of the greatest races in North America. And SRO America will be there next week. Make sure you tune in right here on GT World or on the SRO Twitch channel to catch all the racing from VIR. All right, cars are rolling. Let's go through our starting lineup here. It's Michael Yanni on the front row. Michael Polasek starts alongside him in that number 45, a new team, G-Force Racing.
Next row, Nate Stewart, Dead Zone Racing. He'll start on the inside. And towards the outside of him, Andre Castro. Interesting enough, you're electing to start for pit road instead, Kyle.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice for the number 34. Chris Sievert in the number 39 rolls off 5th place. Alex Cofford for Team HJ. Nice run there for him. He'll start 6th in the number 15.
Cameron Martineau starts off in the 7th position. Expect him to do well today. His rain experience. Then another driver from Dead Zone Camp mainly, Matt Adams in 8th.
In 9th place, it's Ben Blaustein, a great qualifying effort right alongside Logan McKenzie, who starts 10th in the number 14.
Outside the top 10, Thomas Bellman. He'll start alongside Blake Townend in the RD Simsport entry.
And in 13th place, row 7, it's Matt Best. He's new to this championship, was very impressive in practice. The Texas Sim Speed Racing car starts 13th. Ethan Lampe, right up in the mix in the championship, rolls off 14th in the number 95.
Henry Drury, we talked a bit about him. New second entry for PT Autosport with Precision Racing LA this week. Jason Landry starts off 16th.
And in the 17th spot, it's Micah Hendricks in the number 73. Giovanni Romano starts 18th in the number 99.
19, Joshua Soto. Yanni Lin all the way back in 20th position today.
Jordan Rick-Segrini starts 21st in the number 18 for BSI Racing. Nick Sudik starts in the 22nd spot in the 87 machine.
John Lozon will start all the way back in 23rd this evening. 2:29 was his best times. Tristan Cadet will start alongside him in 24th.
And in 25th place, Matt Friedman will start in the number 2. Max Hewitt for BSI rolls off in 26th in the number 22 car.
Then you have Chris Wentz back there alongside Devin Anderson, 28th. Only one other start of the field. Maxwell Stallone will start 29th.
And that is your starting lineup for the 4th round of the Toyota GR Cup North America eSports League. And next time by, the safety car is going to make that right-hand turn onto pit lane. And we're going racing for 60 minutes. About 25 laps worth of racing, give or take. We could see some more laps, could see less, depending on the pace of this race. Michael Yanni and Polasek locked in a fierce battle with Andre Castro in the championship battle. They've been nip and tuck in qualifying so far, getting all the heat they can into those Continental wet weather tires because, Justin, once you're racing, you're going to be managing those for the next 60 minutes.
You're going to have to make sure you're as careful as can be once you get racing on the racetrack, because you go offline here, you're likely going to take a lot of people off the circuit here. So we're going to have to tiptoe around this racetrack. It's going to be an interesting one.
Well, when the pace car pulls off, the leaders can effectively go right when they get to pit lane entry. So the 4th round of the Toyota GR Cup North America eSports League from Virginia International Raceway, as we get to go racing here in just a moment. And green flag, we're racing at VIR. And it's a tentative start there by everybody as we get underway. Now the flag will be waving, and Michael Yanni leads the way.
Up to the gears, no problem so far as they make their way up to Horseshoe. We'll see what is done here. Polasek trying to go deeper on the brakes. Not a big at a full set. It's 3 wide of the heart of the field.
So far, so good. Everyone tiptoeing here through turns. Oh, there's a little bit of contact in the background, and I think Belleman's going to go for a slide. Keeps it pointed the right direction somehow. I didn't see how that happened, but looks like Joshua Soto got on the racetrack here a bit late. So did Max Hewitt, but the 92 leads the way here into left hook.
Yeah, right now it looks like Yanni just trying to lead the way as the Pied Piper. Polasek trying to change up the lines. How things are shaping up here, try and diamond things differently, try and find some clean space wherever it's not, so to speak, the same line to race in, so there's more visibility. You see single file for everybody else, though, getting a whole bunch of rooster tails.
Up into the S's for the first time, climbing S's here, Michael Yanni. Straight lines up the hill, little wiggle there from Alex Coffer to the 15, the HJ car. So far, so good here. You just have to be a bit cautious. One of the things that is a factor potentially is that they set up defaults to dry weather tires, and if you forgot to change it as the race transitioned over, that could be a reason why some of those started from the pit lane because they had the wrong set of tires on or whatnot. But everyone up front appears to be on wet, so there'd be no way you could manage the rain with a slick tire at this stage.
Yeah, it looks like for the most part, everyone's gotten the same grip of things. That's a good heads up from the drivers. Again, that's the stuff that's part of the preparation safety checks, right? You make sure everything's good to go. You make sure you get the right tire compound. You make sure you have no issues with your settings. Make sure everything's ready to go before you take the green.
Into roller coaster for the first time, and everyone doing a nice job getting slowed down here. The aggression's going to pick up, I think, after a few laps, once you have the confidence that your car's going to stop. And the 34 of Andre Cash, remember, he was one of those pit lane starters. He's up to 21st already and quickly making progress.
Yeah, so far, so solid to be able to catch up to the back of the field, and it shows the driver's skill sets right from the onset, as we were talking about. Some drivers a lot more comfortable than others when it comes to the grip levels. So up front though, Polasek, he seems to be a touch bit quicker, just no place to pass.
Yeah, Polasek tracking down Michael Yanni for the top spot, but isn't able to get by here. A little bit of a battle, a bit deeper in the field. There's Thomas Belleman, Jason Landry is in this mix as well. Micah Hendricks in the 73, Landry's teammate. And then Henry Drury in this 88, a strong start for him. Was he also a pit lane starter potentially, up to 11th? Ben Blaustein in the 41 right there in 12th.
Yeah, a lot of shuffling for some of the drivers so far. As we've seen so far already, a lot of give and take. That's one of the main things too. It seems to be popping up here as a result of these conditions. As just as I say that, Townend has a moment and ended up getting very squirrely on his own, trying a different line on entry. We even got a lot of puddles on entry.
Yeah, it just took a big slide. He got to gather back up and didn't go all the way around, but it was a tense moment. Spin, the 14 of McKenzie, way off course in the S's. He's going to go for a wild ride and into the barriers in the S's.
And another one's off of the barriers as well. And Belleman, two different incidents popping up there. Let's take a look.
Yeah, I was gonna go back and look at McKenzie, and then I got distracted by Belleman spin, and we'll look at both. Was there? I think this is all on his own here. He's going to drop the right tire into the curb. He goes off course, and then you pointed out the 3. Same thing, but this time to the left, and he's also going to catch the barrier in a big way there for Belleman.
Yeah, that's going to be a race destroyer for Belleman with how big the ricochet was. As you can see, already broke the left front off the car. So that's the major tough thing. What if it gets slick and you end up getting loose and then it just grips up with you hooking right? There's no way to save it along the slick grass.
Yeah, it's just really challenging up there, and for sure, I think the struggle is those curbs that have so much water held inside them, and you have to straight line it, you have to drive over it, but if you just catch it the slightest bit wrong, it will send you for a wild ride. Polasek has a draft here on Michael Yanni. Could we see a battle for the lead here? We're only 5 minutes in, and it's just 2 drivers up at the pointy end, and more trouble leaving turn 17. We'll check in on it here in a moment, but it's Matt Best and Jordan Rick-Segrini as they're side by side for the lead into turn 1.
Can Polasek make it work outside? That's a great question. He's all the way off the racetrack into the mud.
Yeah, too far, and Nate Stewart's going to come up right behind him, give him a little push to the rear bumper. Didn't like that rejoin very much. And behind, Cofford, Adams, and I think that's Martineau in the mix as well, are also having a bit of a moment. Let's go back and look at what happened to Jordan Rick-Segrini here a moment ago, if we can find him. And he's also crashed in a big way.
Yeah, a lot of damage to the front bumper. Yeah, just got loose on the puddles, got pressurized from behind, and then it's like glass. Once you're on the grass, it takes you off for a ride. Best was also off in a separate one.
Yep, so a couple drivers off in the early going, a few drivers out. Max Stallone, remember, he struggled to get a qualifying lap in, but he's actually racing quite nicely now, isn't he, in the 20th spot, moving up through the order here, tentatively driving, a little bit less aggressive than we saw in that qualifying session where he struggled.
Some of the drivers I'm noticing are finding a lot more confidence on the racetrack. Maybe they got their umbrellas out for the perfect timings, right? Others, not so much right now. Others, once there's all this traffic, are just struggling to see where they need to go and are just blowing through entries. You see in the backdrop right now for the battle we're keeping an eye on. Once you get through some of these sections, you just have to be able to duck out and find different ways to get through the corner so you know where your brake marker is, like Blaustein's doing.
Yeah, Boston's doing a nice job. Jason Landry is leading him. Now, one thing I've noticed is that side of the racetrack isn't raining, Justin. So it's not going to rain the whole time everywhere, but it's going to rain the whole time somewhere. And that is going to be a huge challenge to navigate, especially as the track dries up in some places and not in others. Matt Adams in this purple car making good progress, but a bubble behind Cofford.
Yeah, the radar says currently looking towards lighter rain for the time being. We'll see how long the lighter rain lasts in the session. Already seen with Adams in particular, though, the windshield wipers going to full work to be able to keep that car going forward. Adams having one of his best races of the season so far with how it's looking.
Yeah, and again, I think some drivers are just going to do better in this weather than others. They're just more inclined to it. I hesitate to say natural talent at it because it's a learned skill, but some drivers just get it better than others. Here's the 30 of Wan Shi Lin. He has an issue already pitching the car sideways, and as soon as it hits that compression, it just loops around.
Yeah, loops in a full circle. Thankfully, it wasn't in the racing line once he got a gap back up there. But it is going to cost him a ton of time, all the way back to around 21st spot. That's where Devin Anderson's also doing a more solid job compared to the start of the qualifying session.
Yeah, Devin Anderson, remember, a real-world competitor in the Toyota GR Cup North America Series. He'll be racing next week. I told you his racecraft is excellent, and I think despite the qualifying time, he's going to have a much better result in the race than he would in the qualifying session. Chasing Matt Friedman, to see his quick hands there on that Fanatec wheel right out over the edge of the rumbles, and he's just got a lot of confidence that other drivers don't seem to have right now.
You know, racecraft is rewarded when it comes to the rain. If you know how to drive a car, if you know how to be patient, you get rewarded for it in these types of conditions. If you aren't patient and try and rush your way through it, well, we've already seen how many mistakes have popped up so far and how many drivers have already had to park their cars already with some of the incidents. You need to be patient here, and so far Anderson's being patient.
Andre Castro passed the 12th place rather, or into 12th. Past Micah Hendricks, and he's passed half the field already. And his last lap was a 2:25.313. It was his best lap. That's the case for most of the drivers ahead as well. They've been getting more and more comfortable. We're actually about 2 seconds quicker than we were in qualifying, as now Landry and Blaustein drag race up Madison Avenue.
Yeah, just spinning around the back straightaway section right now. I wonder how that's going to play for tire temps later on if it gets too dried out. But right now, Jason Landry has the better zoom on the outside to be able to clear it. There's that give and take. You can't go full send in this section right now, even with these conditions. This is where it gets heavy rain right back again. Back to moderate, should say, for Roller Coaster.
And Andre Castro is hunting these two down. Top 10 ahead of him. Blaustein has a big wiggle, and Ethan Lampe's off at Hogpen. He's going to get the car back on the road, but a fierce field of about 5 or 6 cars approaching quickly, and they're going to just chomp at whatever they can get their teeth on here on this front straightaway.
Lampe's had some slowdowns as well in the recent laps, so it's not going great, to say the least, with his car. But he's going to have to see, can he play defense? Already Blaustein having to poke out outside to see the racing line. Everybody having a better run compared to the 95, though.
Oh, this is going to get really dicey here at turn 1. Everybody skedaddles off across the surface there, 2 by 2 in formation through Horseshoe. And now into NASCAR Bend. Who's got the preferred line here? Do you want to be on the inside? Castro does.
Castro not able to make the move yet. Near bumper cars with Landry to the back end. Lampy provided a lot of pressure. Looking along, Castro just trusting the racing line as they make contact in front.
And they saved it, but Castro's going to try to jam his car up the inside of the 95, and that was almost calamity there. Great work there by Landry and Lampy to keep the cars pointed the same direction after the contact with how slick it is out on the road.
Yeah, that ERA entry just getting boxed in right now. This, again, is where patience pays dividends. Once you find an opportunity, you can go, but right now Castro's got a heavy amount of rain up the hillside for the run up to South Bend and Company, all the way to Oak Tree. No place to really send it yet, all the way until the end of the next lap.
Gosh, look at Lampy on the outside into the braking zone for the hairpin. He's not going to get there, will he? Into Oak Tree. Somehow he arrests the momentum of that car. It was sliding into the braking zone. He gets it pointed the right direction, and an outside pass in Oak Tree. What a move by Ethan Lampy. How about that?
That's a little bit bold with how the conditions are and how heavy the rain's getting again. This section just drifted his way forward. By that point, Landry doesn't have as much go from the inside. Gets very loose himself. Now he's up for grabs for Castro.
This is fantastic stuff here. Here comes the 34 of Andre Castro to driver's left to Landry. He's through and clear into Roller Coaster now. This is, I think, the most treacherous corner on the racetrack in the wet, and everyone's done a nice job. We haven't really seen any dramas over in that particular corner. It's really been Hawkpen, the one that's been giving everyone the most stress so far. It's way off in the distance. Bit of a battle shaping up for third place with Nate Stewart on defense.
Yeah, right now he's had some talks on the radio too with how the racing started to play out, asking about if you're faster, I'll let you go kind of things. Right now, Sebert trying to get some different lines here to set up a move on Stewart. Martineau just waiting in the wings, watching his teammate.
Saw some sparks out of the 4 car there for some reason. And I think there's been trouble for Ben, maybe just slow through turn 1. Ben Blaustein, I saw real slow. Was there potentially some contact with him in the 73 of Micah Hendricks maybe? No, just gets off and drops a tire almost in the dirt there. Did a nice job. You have to know how slippery it is on the racetrack and off it. So if you could just keep your car on the pavement, you're doing yourself a favor.
Yeah, think of it this way. Have you ever tried to slide on the grass? Well, with these conditions, it will take you for a bit of a ride when you slide just yourself. Imagine a car on the grass. It will take you an extra few feet or so at least per mile per hour, just based on how slick the grass is going to be if you're off on this track. It's like absolute mud puddles in some of the air parts.
Yeah, it's almost like if you've had a slip and slide in your backyard, and once you're moving in any one direction, it's very challenging to change direction. So if you're already sliding, you're kind of committed on that trajectory until you can get the wheels rolling and steer. The worst thing you can do is lock up, because at that point you've got no control over anything. Just keep your momentum pointed in the direction that you can control, keep the wheels rolling, and you stand a chance of correcting it when you finally get back on drier ground. But leaving Oak Tree and back up towards Madison Avenue, Blake Townend and Blaustein. This is a battle for 13th, and Matt Best, who had that slip and slide earlier, is up to 15th. And for third, here comes Sievert in the 39 up the outside of Nate Stewart, and side by side into Roller Coaster.
Oh, but a contact there yet again. Sievert trying to get right to the edge of the left rear tire. Just couldn't get the run, and that's what I talked about with Roller Coaster. It's very risky if you try and send it there. Most will wait to turn 1 because of the better chance for a run. You can just see how tricky it got here.
Yeah, look at Martineau in the background, a huge wiggle there. And while we were watching that replay, it looks like Sievert has gotten alongside Nate Stewart to the inside this time for turn 1.
And this is why I think it's better to wait. Stewart knows he's faster, lets him go. Says, I'll try across at least. But again, the 39 is quicker in these sort of conditions right now to be able to try and run away. Good, smart play by Stewart.
Yeah, nicely done there. Nate Stewart will drop into 4th place. Cameron Martineau, though, is going to be the next one to apply some pressure to him from 5th. They're running all over the rumble strips here because the track is just designed in such a way that you're kind of forced to run over them if you want to have any kind of fast line. And typically you'd be staying far, far away from any painted surface in the wet weather. But here at VIR, it's so hard to avoid. People are just committing to it and driving over it, trying to stay as straight as possible.
Yeah, it's hard to compromise the line where, you know, you turn more, you scrub more speed. So people are just saying, I got to take these puddles and hope it dries out later on at this point. So far, we haven't seen too many major problems per se. Those running down the straight line puddles. A lot of it trying to go to the left or to the right of the puddles rather than take them direct on. You see there with Lampy, he took it more direct on there. That caused him to drift out a bit. Whoop. As way off the track goes Castro.
Yeah, he was off track in a big way there. Got it woed down. But again, he kept the momentum going the right direction here. Just a big lateral slide, straightens the wheel back out, keeps it in understeer, and doesn't try to pull the wheel back to the left. If you pull left there, you're going to be in the fence in a big, big way. So that was great driving there. Micah Hendricks has gone off at Oak Tree.
Yeah, and more troubles for him. He's really struggled that section. Lost the back end and just has to back it up at that point because if he tries to start it where he was, he's going to get creamed.
Yeah, just frustrating. Just trying to get the thing slowed down. You've got the car stood up on the nose. You don't have a lot of rear grip until you shift the weight backwards back on power. But didn't hit anything. That's the critical part of that. Blake Townend and Matt Best. Bit of a battle for 12th here.
So far, seeing Townend do solid. Blaustein. So as we've seen in these groupings, yes, that seems to be playing things well, but looks like we have more people off. Best able to stick it, not so much for Cofford.
Oh, and Ben Blaustein spun behind him. And this has really been the trouble spot this entire race, has been Hogpen here. Watch the 41. Again, pitches it in, and then as soon as he gets the compression right there, it just steps out. Trying to run the racing line. It's not going to work for you. So Cofford is going to rejoin 14th behind John Lausen. And all the while, we've been watching everyone else struggling with this. 9 seconds clear of the rest of the field are the 2 leaders, and Polasek has begun to run Yanni back down. 0.5 of a second between the 2 leaders.
Wonder if he tried to cool down the tires a little bit, try and get them balanced out, and then went back to push mode that we're starting to see again. Close up the gap. It is the possibility we've seen come into play several times where it's better to almost conserve and then wait rather than push forward, as Polasek have a different lines. Yanni going more head-on the lines.
Yeah, drops the tire there on the right. He's feeling some pressure now from Polasek reeling him in. And that 45 is dialed right now. You see how focused he is. He's just in it. Got his triple screen set up here and has the 92 straight in the crosshairs. And it's just a battle between these two. If someone else wants to be a part of this fight, like Severt or Stewart or Drury, by the way, up to 5th place in that 88. Nice work there. They've got a long way, 10 seconds to make up. Matt Best has gone around again, and this time, I think he's got the 70 with him. And there's another car, the 73. Might have been a couple of cars all going off at the same time.
Yeah, Lauzon in particular, going to be an interesting one, I think, towards the back half of this. Yeah, Best just lost the back end, just lost traction.
Same
else.
thing.
Yeah, everyone just follows the same pathway. It's almost the iRacing conundrum. You see someone get loose, you follow them getting loose, and it gets worse and worse the further back in the line you go.
Yeah, and again, I think it's just there's not really a different line to run here as the 95 and 34 have a little contact. Remember all the way back to Sonoma when these two were banging fenders nose to tail in the dry in California? Well, now in Virginia, they are soaking wet. 8th and 9th, big lift for Lampy, and he's off at Hogpen again.
And way off, and I think he's done. I think he's out of the race as Lampy's gone. Here we go. Just like that, Castro able to hold on to the spot.
Yep, so Castro up to 8th place. Michael Yanni, 0.6 clear of Polasek. And then the battle for 3rd. Stewart, half a second back. Drury, 2.5 back from that.
Ways a ways to be able to make it forward here, but Drury's been mightily impressive. He worked with Yanni. We talked about that as a teammate. And so far, that teamwork has really paid off, I think. Didn't have the hot lap speed, but he's got speed to be on the podium and possibly run away with it.
Yeah, this is a really strong run by everybody in this top 5. I mean, the 39, the 4, and the 88 all having really characteristically good days. They haven't been off pace by any stretch, and of course Drury is new, but they are running a very nice job and being conservative. We've still got a long way to go in this race, 40 minutes. So, there's who's to tell what's going to happen a little ways from now, but look at the balance that Sever's got, just bouncing on the edge of control, but looks very comfortable while he's doing it.
Like a balancing ball, just about when it comes to it. You tilt one way, you fall off. You tilt another way, you fall off. So far, Christopher doing a solid job keeping on the ball, so to speak, to be able to keep himself on the pavement.
Up the back straightaway here. Message from race control that the rain is expected to lighten in about 15 minutes. So that means that we could see the advantage shift to another driver as the conditions start to get a little better. It's not going to get dry, but it might get a little better.
Yeah, and keep in mind, some drivers are already essentially going to think about incident points as the race goes on here. We'll see how they manage it, because for some, they might be approaching that halfway mark of the incident points already, just with how many mistakes that cascaded and how everyone's right at the edge of getting 2X's, because every time you spin around here and go more than 45 degrees around or so, consider it loss of control here with iRacing, you lose control, well, those points can stack up.
Michael Yanni, Michael Polasek, nose to tail still, putting on a heck of a show here at the front of the field. And with how we saw these two in practice and qualifying, something tells me we're going to see this for the rest of the race. It'll be advantage whoever's in second as far as who's going to be running quicker, just based on what we've seen so far. Have a look at the last lap, left side of the screen there. 2:24.0 for Polasek, 2:24.5 for Michael Yanni.
Well, Yanni's also taking more aggressive line to each of these corners, while Polasek's been trying to take more off along line, trying to avoid the exact tire tracks so he can get a better line and try and get better runs off some of these corners wherever he can. And I think that's really worked so far for him.
John Lowson, Matt Best, Alex Coffert making their way through the race, 13th, 14th, and 15th. All three of these drivers have had off so far, but they've gotten right back up on the horse and continued to ride. Now, 23rd through 29th, all out of the race. McKinsey, Hewitt, Romano, Rick Segrini, Wetz, Belleman, and Lampe. Handful of those were contact damage from barriers, and a few others out from frustration or otherwise. But there's a long way to go, Justin. We could see that attrition level climb.
Yeah, I think we might see that skyrocket pretty soon, honestly, just based on how difficult it's been getting for some of these drivers. This queue up for third on through fifth, still staying lockstep. They've now matched each other on pace. No moves from Drury yet.
Yeah, Drury's looking very, very solid here in P5, and I think that his experience on course is going to be very helpful to him, especially in the patience category. He knows, we're not even to halfway in this race, so there's no need to rush this as he watches the two ahead of him battle.
Yeah, no place to take it. Just no place to take the run. He is trying to gain a little bits of time here and there on deeper entrances or exits. Try and find some different lines, avoid the puddles. And I think it's working well. It's just, again, it's hard to pass two at once unless one of the people in front slips up. He's got good exit speed, though. It's just right about here he starts to break into a wall.
Yeah, right here. Again, there's some more rolling resistance on those wet tires, but everybody's got that. Is he going to go driver's left here, Nate Stewart? Will it be a braking duel into the horseshoe? Going to pull up along the corner of the four and pressure him into the braking zone and hug the left side door of the four. Little contact there as they head through turn one.
Trying to send it a little bit aggressive here. To Stewart, give and take it. It looks like Stewart not going to back off easily, but now with that second little nudge, is going to say, you know what? If you want it so bad, take it.
Yeah, I thought that Drury would sit back and watch Stewart and Severed battle a bit, but maybe he thought that the 39 was quicker and would distance them and drive away. All the while in the background, look at Matt Adams and Cameron Martineau. Big battle happening for 6th place here. Purple versus blue. Take your pick.
Well, right now, Adams has looked like he's picked up a lot more speed as of late. 19 seconds back the leader, yes. But Adams has just been straightforward on each of these runs. Talked about being one of his best runs in this series. He's kind of proving it with how he's been so composed, it seems, on these lines. Never mind.
Oh, and around he goes, right in front. And can he get it straightened back out in time? Lets the wheels roll. It's going to be the slightest bit of wall contact, but he will continue. That was actually pretty well done. If you're going to crash at VIR in the rain, that's how you should do it.
Just a little bit of rear end damage there, but just lost traction mid-corner. It's happened so many times up the hillside. Right there, the back tires just kick out too much speed, bye-bye car.
Yep, and there's already a little bit of damage on the left rear from either contact with somebody else or whatnot, but he's up to, or down to 10th place, but honestly not all that bad, all things considered. John Lausen, same thing, same place, up the S's.
And similar type of damage, I think, on that car as well, so it's going to take a while for him to get back up to speed. All that's wild, by the way. Drury is held on, same for Yanni. Yanni seems to be fine. The rain conditions so far staying pretty heavy for now before that light period talked about.
Yeah, the sky is lightening up a little bit as far as the cloud cover, but the precipitation is still coming down with some velocity here. But I'll tell you what, these two have just put on a great show. Remember back at COTA, their battle to the start-finish line, their side-by-side fight for the entire last lap. It was a heck of a race.
I think they'll have a heck of a finish with how things are looking, though, because Yanni's been not having any mistakes with how this has played out. Polasek just waiting for things to open up, just waiting for an opportunity to present itself. Just no opportunities have done so yet without it being a massive risk in this race.
Yeah, and there's still so much time, right? I mean, we've said it and we'll say it again, 32 minutes to go. We're closing in on halfway, but he ran him back from a few seconds down, so he's in a pretty good spot, I'd say, to just keep him in the crosshairs. Matt Best, and he and Cofford have both had a couple spins and slides today, but just fighting through it. And we haven't had wet weather all season long. It's been nice and dry and tidy and perfect conditions. And when you get the challenge thrown at you, you can't throw in the towel right out of the gate. You got to keep fighting, and Matt Best is fighting, isn't he?
Fighting the car, if anything, the Texas speed entry. And, oh boy, another off.
Yeah,
and this
Drury.
time it's Drury.
And that was a big hit to the rear of the car, and the same place that we've seen a couple drivers right there on the entry to the S's in a compression. It just takes a hard right, and he couldn't get it swung back enough to keep the car from hitting the wall. Now, it was just rear damage, though. The question is, how badly did it break the rear of the car?
Well, it's not enough for mandatory repairs. That's the bright side. Downside is he's lost a ton of time. Looked to be in line for the podium before that situation, but there's a saying, right? Even the best of drivers can have struggles in the rain. We've seen that now for one of the best drivers on the day today now, all the way back to 7th.
And look at this on the front straightaway. It has lightened up quite a bit, actually, on the front straightaway. It's still coming down, but it has lightened up. Past the start-finish line there for Polasek and Yanni. 0.6 is the differential.
Yeah, staying close. That's, I think, again, the key. Polasek, if he loses the 1 second gap, it's not going to be as easy. He's done it only once before to close up here in this race. But just needs to keep track. Keep Yanni on his toes. Keep pressurizing him.
Half a second is the differential. The best battle right now is about for 10th. There's about a second back to Matt Best from Alex Cofford, and then it's another group of 2 or 3 cars. One of the drivers in this mix we haven't really talked about yet today is Nicholas Sudik. I heard car sliding. I think that was Cofford in the 15, and Hogpen has been his Achilles heel today, hasn't it?
It's been the Achilles heel for a lot of competitors, you can argue. But That nearly caused a lot of trouble, as here we go, more trouble.
Matt Friedman and Devin Anderson coming together there. I'm not sure if it was contact that started it. Nope, the two just looped it, and Anderson did a nice job. He kind of got hip checked off course there, but he's up to 16th place now, just passing spun out cars.
No major damage from that, so very lucky. Friedman able to avoid damage himself from it. So all that's with Drury's already reeled back in Adams, or rather Adams has reeled in Drury as he's fallen off.
I think Drury had another spin in the first half of the lap. Again, the steering wheel's straight in this car, but I don't know what it's done to the rear camber and caster and things, so it could do weird stuff, especially in left-hand corners, which thankfully there's not a million of those at VIR. It's mostly a clockwise circuit, but I don't think it's going to get better for Drury with that damage he's got to the rear.
He's also got damage, I think, to the right front, too, just above the wheel well. And you can see just how crossed up he's getting, how quickly he's got to be on the motions just to be able to keep this car the way it is in terms of speed. Any little mistake, and it immediately is looking like it's going to step out here.
Michael Yanni, Michael Polasek, still half a second apart, and we're past the halfway point. And on the front straightaway, at least, the rain is very light, so we can see this, I hesitate to say dry up, but at least a dry line begin to form. And then the question becomes, are those wet weather tires going to overheat or have a challenge, especially with such a long race? I would be worried about tire temp towards the end of this thing.
Yeah, because the drier the track when it comes to the tread tires, the more it eats up the tires. It's going to be where they burn up like crazy in terms of the percentages in iRacing, where it shows up as percentage when you go into the pit lane. Once you get to where you're running on the dries on wet weather tires, it's going to cause a massive amount of fall off and quickly compared to, say, a slick tire on dry.
Henry Drury, again, one of these drivers that's not willing to get off the horse. He's going to get right back up on it. He's going to pull to the inside of Matt Adams. This is a battle for 7th place on the front straightaway, and he's going to complete this pass.
Yeah, Adams, the radio did say, if you get back to me, I'll let you go. So obviously knows that Drury's got good pace in him, just having troubles to making sure he limits the mistakes right now. Some good respect being shown by the drivers throughout this field, as said today.
Yeah, it's hard enough on your own, right? You definitely don't need your competitors making it more challenging for you. Blake Townend a little push there through turn 1. But going back to Nicholas Sudik, I just mentioned him. We haven't really talked a lot about him this season, but today, just tentatively, cautiously making his way forward. I don't see a scratch on that 87 car, Justin, and that's half the battle here.
It's been a battle for him just to do that every race, it seems, because Sudik in a lot of cases has had this speed to be in mid-pack, then has had a car land on top of him almost, and then he ends up finishing 26th or 30th spot. Today, he's been able to avoid all those troubles, and it's put him in a great position here as long as he doesn't make
this
a mistake.
Is aggressive. Yeah, I thought this was going to be too much. He backed out, but he was going to take Blake Townend side by side through the climbing S's. We've seen how challenging those have been today. Max Stallone, by the way, still working his way through the S's. He's going to try it on the outside. That's a risky maneuver, but he does it.
And a wow on the radio from Sudik. Wow, indeed. Stallone going uber aggressive.
Yeah, I think that caught even him off guard. I mean, that was a pretty wild maneuver to try, especially after we just saw Sudik take it easy through there. And then here comes another competitor blowing around him on the outside of a blind corner, coming over a rise in the wet. I mean, that was unbelievable. Like we saw with Lampy earlier in the race when he overtook on the outside of Oak Tree. Same story there. Now, does Matt Adams regret letting Henry Drury by, or is he following him to try to learn what he can, or he's keeping that 88 honest, isn't he?
I think at this point, just keeping it honest and seeing where the pace lies. See how it goes. If there's pace later on, he'll try and pass back because there's still a solid amount of time to be able to try and do something here with 25 minutes or so to work with on the clock. It's just right now, it's more so feeling it out to see, okay, what's his speed? Because he was up there by 30 seconds or so at one point. Why push the issue?
And here's why. 57, Blake Townend is in the wall hard, and I think this is at Hog Pen here. Yep. Same story we've seen here a couple times today. This car is absolutely destroyed, breaks loose at the top of the hill here, and it just goes along for a ride. This is what I was talking about in the intro. If you get off course, you're not going to stop because of the downhill grade there and the wet grass. Blake Townend's day, at least competitively, I don't want to say it's over. He's still on track. He had the opportunity to come to pit lane, but it's not going to get any better.
Yeah, no front end's not going to be a good sign for the race speed, to say the very least. If anything, one more bad hit, and that could end his day there. So, it looks like Adams did take the spot back and said, you know what? I think I am still quicker right now. Just said, you know what? I'm just going to make the pass last time to turn 4, and he did it again.
And Adams, this time, I don't think he's going to be able to save this. Into the wall, big time. And he's out just like that. And it's just the same thing, Justin. You just wonder, you know, the same thing, expecting a different result over that area in the S's. You know, it's caught out a lot of people today.
The second time as well for him in this race, he's done it. So at some point, you just have to wonder, are drivers just having the difficulty because of the rain conditions? Is this more, what can they do?
It's gotten better.
It's a better phrase.
I mean, it's gotten better since the beginning of the race, but I think there's an air of confidence, right? And then I think those that haven't been caught out by that uphill S's, or they haven't seen anyone get caught out by it, they don't know. And some of them do. Some of them have done that multiple times, but you can't go through the same section of the racetrack the same way, 15 times and expect it to be different every time. It's going to do the same thing to you. I mean, obviously the track is transitioning, but I would still be very cautious in those high load areas like we've seen.
And a lot of people have struggled with the very high up the hillside sections today. Polasak's been one of the better drivers with it, I've noticed, because again, watch the line. Right now, this is where he has to be single file for the time being, right? Starting to lose a bit of ground. But right about here, he tries to variate it. Try and get a different angle, try and get a better run through the corners, and then he gains a lot of time usually up the hillside before going later on the brakes for this section up through South Bend up to Oak Tree. That usually ends up gaining him back 2-3 tenths.
Yeah, and he's done a really nice job. We saw the car wiggle slightly in the climbing S's, but he had the car straight. Every time he went over a rise or had a bump, the car is straight so that if it loses traction, it's just going to correct itself. It's not going to continue to spear off in any one direction. Drury and Blaustein, this is for 7th. And Blaustein's going to go around Drury. That 88 is struggling now. Andre Castro, by the way, started from the pit lane, right? And here he is in P5.
Well, how about that, to say the very least? He did have an early pit stall, so that reduced the amount of time in the pit delta by at least a few seconds. But Castro's racing a lot better than how he was in even final practice, with how he was struggling to get the grip together. This run today, a lot more comfortable to be able to get to right about where he would normally be running if it wasn't for that.
Honestly, this is a great recovery on a day that could have taken out of the title fight. It's not going to necessarily assist him in chasing down the championship leader, but this is not a bad day at all. Polasek has caught Michael Yanni. You see the race control message that we're expecting the rain to stop in the next 10 minutes. So this is going to make things really interesting as the battle for the lead is back on up front.
Once again, Polasek trying to make it work high side on the outside through turn 1 through Horseshoe. This time might be able to make it work for NASCAR Ben. He's got it.
And Yanni is going to tuck in behind and loses the lead of the race for, I think, effectively the first time today.
It was the matter of when, not if, I think, in this case for Polasek, because of how close he was keeping it. Eventually, he was going to say, I need this lead. I want to get some clean space before it dries out. Yanni's not going to give this up any sort of easily, though, with how he's trying to push. How about aggression again?
Side by side, up into the climbing S's. This is going to end in disaster if neither lifts. They're going to try it door to door in the slickest section of the racetrack here at VIR. They do it somehow. Polasek leads the way. Yanni tucks into P2 again. I cannot believe they just did that.
Can't believe they made it stick either there, because that was an area that they expected to have very low traction. And well, we've seen the boldest and the bravest make it stick there today with how tricky it is and unpredictable through the S's. The words of Polasek, he just wanted a decent points finish. Well, he's in line possibly to be at least top 2 here as long as he doesn't bin it.
They have a 20-second differential back to the 39 car, so even if they have a spin, as long as they don't hit anything, they should be okay. But it's going to be a two-man fight here, and Polasek has just been on it, and I don't know that Yanni's going to be able to keep pace with him. He's already back a couple tenths of a second. If you can't keep him reeled in here next time by the stripe, Polasek has just got to hang on, but he's going to push wide there at Roller Coaster. That was a scary moment.
Still made a grip up, though. No place for Yanni to take it. We'll see if Yanni's going to get a good run down the front straightaway. It seems like if you get a great run out of Hogpen, usually sets up a pass opportunity. Doesn't look like Yanni got it.
Yeah, about 3.5 tenths back now, under 20 minutes to go. The last third of this race is underway.
Now, this is where on the radar, you mentioned the rate, expect to stop in less than 10 minutes time now. Radar expected to come flat to a stop on that rain. Now Yanni trying to go for the crossover.
And he's going to do it. He's got overlap now in the 92. Polasek's got the preferred line for NASCAR Ben, though. This is going to get very dicey here into NASCAR. Unless Polasek pulls clear, he does just that.
Able to slam the door on once again. It seems like you almost need to make it stick outside through turn 1 to be able to get that preferred group for NASCAR Ben up to left hook. By that point, it's hard to make it stick side by side, right? It seems like it's going to be extremely difficult to get alongside. Yet again, it looks like they might go aggressive again. How about bump drafting in the rain?
Yeah, let's give it a try. The thing I'm worried about here is he can't see very well. And this is that area that's been so slick. It's drying out, though. The rain is slowing to a stop here. And we see the big wiggle there for Michael Yanni. Corrects it very quickly indeed. But that was a scary moment, and there's going to be more and more of those as we get down to the tail end of this race. Now, with the rain going away and the track drying, the next consideration is keeping the tire temperature reasonable. You're going to burn these wet weather tires up in the dry. You might have to start looking for puddles. It's stopped over here by Oak Tree.
Yeah, these puddles do help to cool down the tires a little bit. Seen that a lot in terms of real world racing as well, especially as of late, say, stock cars. That was a talking point in New Hampshire. If you run to the cooler puddles, it helps keep those tires to balance. But right now, there's not a lot of puddles per se in where you'll be running on the racetrack. If anything, the puddles are drying up too in some areas. Here, it's still pouring.
Yeah, Yanni driving hard off into Roller Coaster. Big slide. Polasek almost spins the car out. He gathers it back up, but loses the lead.
Did the same thing as before, but a little bit too much yaw out. And Yanni able to pounce. Don't know if they were expecting the rain to still be hitting at that part of the racetrack.
Yeah, that definitely caught him off guard. He was not ready for that. But he'll just get right back up on it. Huge slide there for Polasek in the 45. Here it is again. And he had this big lead here, and you just have to wonder, you know, as this racetrack transitions, who's to be better at chasing the changes?
Adaptability is the main term, and right now, just kicked out, trying to carry too much speed into it. Being able to adapt is going to be the main tipping point for the rest of this race. If you can't adapt, you're going to go backwards at this point, as it looks like already Yanni all the way to the edge of the runoff area.
Yeah, big push there. And used every inch of the road, 0.6 of a second. I think Polasek is the quicker driver, but Yanni has been a bit more cautious. He's had to be for most of this race because he's led most of this race, so he was the first one to get to the weather.
Warning, bump draft. Just over the radio just now. You cannot bump into the straightaways. Remember, that is a rule.
Yeah, so that's a rule that's carried over from the Real World Series, is that you can't block bumpers in push draft, right? So that was a warning to the 92. I don't think they'll have a lot of issues not doing that again. I think that was more circumstantial than anything, but that's something to keep an eye on. If you've got the ire of the stewards in the last 15 minutes of this race, it's just one less warning box you're going to get checked before a penalty.
And now Polasek needs to close up a lot of time to regroup here. Looks like he's trying to cool off the tires again. just trying to get through the rooster tails, try and follow tire track to tire track, and close up the ground once again in a couple minutes. I think he's playing the long game yet again, thinking big picture on those temperatures.
I think big picture is exactly what Yanni's been doing, and I think he's going to continue to do that. Even if he will lose this race, he won't want to Polasek, but he's playing that big picture discussion as far as the championship is concerned. So we'll see how aggressive Yanni gets in defense, but it's been fun to watch.
Excessively fun, to say the least, because of how the rainy conditions have been. They will have some lap traffic to eventually to have to deal with possibly here. See how they play with said traffic right now. But Polasek has been really strong down the front straightaway when he's been able to line it up. The draft still is somewhat there, it seems. And now with the sun really beating down front straightaway, expect that to really kick in.
Yeah, the rooster tail's going away slightly, and as the track dries, we can see less and less of that. But notice on the front straightaway, right center screen, you can see where the track is less shiny, and it is drying. And we've got 14 minutes left of this race, so it's going to change this enough to potentially impact the outcome of this. Remember that Michael Yanni has won one event so far. Polasek has won one event so far. The other race event winner was Vicente Salas, who's no longer competing in the championship. So these guys are 1v1 against each other. Andre Castro is still winless. He rides fifth right now, 33 seconds back. So it's unlikely he'll win today, but I think we're going to have a tiebreaker between these two by the end of this one.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of ground to make up. Remember, we talked about the missed round for Yanni before, but he was one of the favorites because he's one of the top drivers when it comes to style of racing that we touched upon earlier on. He said himself, uphill battle is the term. Just want strong finishes, be in the on the championship podium. And mind you, he's one of the drivers busy trying to qualify for open wheel competition for world championships on the IndyCar side, because that championship just got kicked off in the past week and that prep. So he's another one of those with a busy time on top of those with eNASCAR commitments.
Yeah, I mean, the pro drivers in the esports world, they are busy, and they have to jump across, as many, different hurdles as the real world drivers do, as far as learning different track layouts, learning different combinations, and jumping from them back and forth week after week. It's very impressive to be able to do that. Michael Polasek has reeled in Yanni once again. It's a half a car length between them with 12 and a half minutes to go. There's some lap traffic on the horizon as well. We're also hearing that Blake Townend is one incident point away from a penalty, and he's down pit lane.
Well, I think he hit the penalty just now after that initial bulletin, so he's got a black flag. Well, he had just been down pit road a couple minutes ago, too.
So here's the thing. If you're already going to be on pit lane for a penalty, I would throw on a set of slick tires right now. I know it's going to take you a long time in pit lane to put those on, but why not? With 12 minutes, you might have enough time to do something with them, especially if the others are struggling around you. Here comes Polasek late on the brakes to the outside of that first corner.
Already sending it yet again. Near contact on the squeeze, but Polasek's got the run where he needs it to be. Able to stick it outside for the fourth corner for the switchback.
Polasek trying to wrestle it away from Michael Yanni. Nate Stewart and Severt changing spots for third behind them, but Polasek wrestling the lead away through left hook. He's still got overlap. Michael Yanni powers his way back through. Under 12 minutes to go, and we're side by side for the lead still.
Still able to get the better run. Polasek, somebody's going to have to give here. It's single file for much of this course after this. Looks like could be a crossover attempt instead.
Michael Yanni's going to try it side by side here. Must feel like he can trust the grip level now. Over the curbing, still door to door through the S's. I cannot believe they're doing this here. It's still slick. Side by side contact.
Able to make door to door contact. No troubles. Polasek going to back it up and try and get a run instead. Nearly pinched off the track.
Yeah, it's getting frisky up here now for the front. They know what's at stake here. Polasek wrestles it back in Oak Tree. Yanni's going to cross him over on this exit and go to the outside. Polasek runs him out of road a little bit.
Bit of an outie squeeze, but that's going to settle down the battle for now. Just like that. It's going to get interesting how Yanni now plays it after the squeeze. Already apologies over the radio.
Yeah, I mean, the sportsmanship between these two guys, they are fierce competitors, but nobody wants to win by running each other off course. Yanni got his elbows out a bit. Polasek got his elbows out a bit. As far as I'm concerned, they're even and equal. 10 minutes to go now. and I don't know which one of these drivers has the upper hand. Polasek's in really hot into roller coaster.
Yet again, he's been really sending it that section and kicking out the back end. Yanni's been better up through roller coaster this entire race. Has to play that perfect. The thing is, Polasek's been a bit better through hog pen to be able to get a better stick. Looks like the draft now for Yanni as more clouds settle over the racetrack for a moment.
Yeah, it's supposed to be overcast, I think, for the rest of the day. It'll hold up the drying a bit. Here comes a big run from Yanni in the slipstream. He's going to go to the right, going to get squeezed to the edge of the road. Polasek's going to hold his line. Breaking duel into one. Polasek, Yanni, door to door.
Again, Polasek has the better chance to make the move, though, for the inside for NASCAR Bend. Does Yanni reset? Looks like he'll have to try and get a crossover. Instead, Polasek braked while he tried to cross it.
Ooh, little front to rear contact there. Yanni's got a tire in the dirt. Who's going to push more in the changing conditions in the last 5 laps of this race?
This is not going to be an easy pass back now, because it's pretty clear that Polasek knows how to play this defensively and wants to play it aggressive on the defense. Yanni has been a lot better for a lot of segments, though. Up the hillside, he's been able to pick up some ground. Yet again, just trying to think, does he be aggressive? He's thinking about it again.
Really big cut there over the curbing in the S's. Yanni trying to straight line as best he can. Lunge into South Bend. It spooks Polasek. He's off course. Polasek goes for a ride. Yanni drives around the outside. Unbelievable fake move there from the 92, but it doesn't fool the 45 entirely. Wow.
And how about that again? Try to pressurize the mistake. Does. Makes it work outside, out of Oak Tree. And now Yanni back up to the point. But Polasek's been better on the front side of the racetrack throughout this race. This could be another chance to swap it back here. There's that toe.
Here comes Polasek now, the 45, up alongside into roller coaster. These two have been dueling for the last handful of laps. There is cash prizes on the line, not only today, but at the end of the title fight. And these two are going for it. Polasek clings to it for now.
Able to get the squish to be able to squeeze back on Yanni. But again, Polasek good down the front straightaway. Yanni this time trying to line it up as close as possible to make it side by side again.
And all the water that you're seeing on the wipers, that's all from the water on the course being sucked up under the car. It is not raining anymore. It is just a battle for the top spot as Yanni puts 2 tires in the grass. He pulls even with Polasek on the front straightaway. They're locked together on the front stretch.
More contact, more squeezing from Polasek. Yanni just can't get the grip down to be able to keep it alongside this time. And he'll have to reset yet again, trying a different line.
You saw Yanni drive out to the edge of the road there, picked up some water. I wonder if he is attempting to cool the tires off a bit. He knows that if you manage the tire temp, you're going to be in a better position in the next 7 minutes than the driver ahead of you. If you got to keep those tire temperatures low, find the puddles to cool them off here in the closing stages of this race.
Seems to be trying to search for a lot of those puddles. There's still a fair amount of puddles along the curbing. So the preferred line can be where those splash zones can settle in. Not so much in some of the other sections. We'll see how things play out here.
Once again, through the S's. Polasek a little offline. Yanni, much straighter trajectory up the hill. Yanni's going to try to lunge again and do the same move. Polasek leaves him space there, but doesn't get crossed up like he did last time. Nice defense there from the 45. It's still wetter down here than it is on the first half of the track. So they're being a bit more tentative into the braking zone.
Just trying to set it up right. Just trying to set up a prime opportunity. And now you have to think as well, it's been aggressive from both of these drivers here, Kyle. Eventually, they're going to cross that limit, so to speak, in terms of aggression. Right now, Yanni has a better run.
Up side by side here for the top spot. And Polasek has an avoidable contact warning for the collision at the beginning of this lap when they were hooked together. So race control is keeping a very close eye on these two. I know they're not trying to lean on each other here, Justin, but they have to race this clean as they have for the rest of the season. That's the expectation. Little side by side is okay. You start pushing and shoving, someone's going to have to break it up.
gonna have to be smart with it. That's the critical thing. If you aren't smart with it, well, you end up in trouble spots. Yet again, more puddles to be able to cool things down the straightaway. That's why they're running the right sides in particular through some of those puddles along the edge of the racetrack. All that's with Stewart, still battling it out for third.
Yeah, there's a great battle happening back here for the podium spot as well, so we'll keep you updated on both of these fights as they get closer and further away. Where's Polasek gone? Yanni, okay, they're both, one of them was off the camera screen there because they were so far wide. Half a second between them and a 1/10.5 between these two.
Right now, a good chance for the 39 for the outside. A bit of contact.
Ooh, a little bit more leaning on each other. It's going to push the 39 right out to the edge of the road, but into that water we were just talking about. That could be a blessing in disguise there.
Yeah, right now, Stewart just trying to fight as hard as he can to get the podium. Again, normally an oval racer in the past, built up a lot of the road experience we've talked about. He's done a very strong job for Dead Zone Racing throughout this championship so far. Best job yet. Can he hold on for 4 more minutes for a podium?
Yeah, it sounds like Henry Drury's gone around for another slide, and this time it's in the turn 17 hog pen area. Gets it back rolling. Still P8. And then Jason Landry and Alex Cofford are fighting for 9th, having a good scrap amongst them too.
Yeah, they've been having a solid job. Stewart having some drifting around at this point.
Gosh,
more
makes
pressure.
me nervous.
Yeah, I think both of them have to be nervous because if someone over analyzes the situation, or better yet, is over aggressive while trying to analyze the situation here, well, you're not going to have happy drivers.
No.
And right now, you don't want to lose good point spots.
No, certainly not. They're both in a great position here. And they've got 8 seconds back to Andre Castro, who's just done a phenomenal job today coming from the back of the field. But they've got a lot of work left to do just to stay there. It's going to be 2 laps to go at the stripe. And Polasek was close, burned up some time in roller coaster that time through. But Yanni searching for rain. You see a wider line there through 17, but a huge run coming from Polasek. He shot out of a cannon onto the front straightaway. We're going to have a battle for the lead into one again.
Once again, Polasek right where he likes to be for building up runs like this. A lot of wiper blades only down the front straightaway, and again, he knows outside, you keep it alongside by the exit of the horseshoe, puts him up for a good spot. Looks like he's going to try it.
If he can cling to the outside here, and he's going to, he'll have a run into NASCAR Bend. Yanni trying to defend from driver's right, but what do you do here? You're kind of in a bad spot. I think Yanni might just try to tuck in, or if he can keep this overlap. No, he's off in the dirt. Gosh, that's tight. And Polasek gives it back.
Yeah, that's great sportsmanship, Kyle. Knew that he squished him off the track, said, you know what, I don't want to win like this.
I mean, I haven't seen anything like that in a long time. That's great driving here by Polasek. Let's watch this again. Drives Zaire onto NASCAR and just washes him out a little wide, pushes him onto the rumbles. And honestly, I don't think he was really required to give that back by any stretch. Didn't make contact with them, but really you can't force the other driver to use the runoff area. That's not racetrack per the rules. So that was just very respectful driving. It might have cost him a bit more than he was hoping, though.
I think he's still got one more chance, maybe 2, to get this done, though, because look at how much time's on the clock. It's going to be interesting how things play out for these closing stages. Polasek, stronger front straightaway, but they do have lap traffic to pull off and Friedman coming up.
Ooh. Cross up there by Polasek. Made a huge mistake leaving the oak tree area. No traction control, just did it the old-fashioned way, and they're going to move their way by the 2-car of Matt Friedman, who's going to let them go. Nice sportsmanship conduct there. Been very proud of everyone today as far as that's concerned. But it's 1 second that Polasek has to make up in 1 lap. Can he do it? Justin, this is going to be a hard one.
Yeah, that mistake through oak tree might have been costly. How about a lunge and a half, though? Polasek gained 3/4 in 1 lunge. He's not where he wants to be, though, to make this pass work.
No, he gave up 2 or 3 of those tenths after the corner entrance, but a good run through hog pen and a good front straightaway. He'll put him in a pretty good spot. 6/10 back. I wouldn't call that impossible by any means. Last lap around VIR in round 4, the Toyota GR Cup North America eSports League. It's been Yanni and Polasek trading blows for the top spot, and it's not over yet.
Right now trying to play the middle line instead, play through some of the puddles. Polasek not where he needed to be able to send it, obviously, but a lot of bobbling from Yanni. Doesn't have as much retraction as he's looking for in this rainy condition still, or rather the wetter condition.
Yanni looking as cool as ever. Maybe a little tense there with those neck muscles. How tight and tense he is right now, trying to keep that 45 behind him. Nate Stewart and Chris Severa, they're coming together at turn 1. Stewart's going to hang on to it for now. It's still half a second between the two leaders as they enter Snake and the climbing S's for one more time.
Up the hillside, and yet again, Bert trying to go and put on a savant-like pass. How about that on the move?
Yeah, nicely done there. Finally gets it done, moves himself into third place again. He and Nate Stewart have traded that back and forth a couple of times. I'm still not sure this one's done. Big slide on exit. Will Nate Stewart fill the gap to the inside? Not quite.
No place to fill the gap yet, but Stewart seems to be on the upper hand for momentum. They are turning their fastest laps of the race at the moment with how things have broken down, but the race leaders, they're getting close again. Polasek trying to set up one more lunge.
He's a long ways back, 4/10. I don't know that he's going to be able to get that from into roller coaster, but he might have a run onto the front straightaway. Look at how focused he is right now. Just a handful of corners left to go in round 4. It has been a brawl all day. Survival through the wet and fighting through the dry.
Can he get a lunge anywhere? It's close. Is he going to try it? He's trying it.
Into roller coaster for the final time. Yanni on defense, trying to hold off the 45 of Michael Polasek. These two have raced each other with the utmost respect. They have raced each other for 59 minutes and 40 seconds, and there's one corner left to go. Here we go. It's been cloudy all day. Who will the sun shine for in Virginia? Side by side, it's going to be a battle to the stripe. Polasek's got a run coming. Checkered flag is waving. Drag race here in Virginia. Yanni, Polasek. Polasek, I think, got him. I think Polasek got him at the stripe. I don't believe it.
He didn't look like he would have a shot for the final lap, but how about that run? Perfectly placed to the left side of the racetrack. Got him by 26 100ths.
And Nate Stewart and Chris Sievert here, I think Stewart's going to win this battle, and he will. P3 for the number 4, P4 for the 39. But how did he manage to do that? I mean, I have never seen anything like that where they battled for so long and fought so hard in changing conditions, and he beat him by 26 1,000ths of a second.
Absolutely pumped up. I don't know if he thought it would have a chance with how things looked, but a look of suspenseful sadness from Yanni after that one. He played it near perfectly. It's just that Polasek, that run out of hog pen that he was primed for every time in this race, did it perfect again. Got the draft, pulled him back, got to the left side, had more run because of the draft initially. Got it done despite the higher groove.
I mean, it's just we'd expect this in the dry. We'd expect that you'd have a battle like this coming to the checkers, but in the race that we had today, with half the field out from issues, contacts, spins, you name it, these two fought for the entire race, and it came down to 26 thousandths.
Unbelievable is all you can really say. But Polasek, an absolutely stellar race, to say the very least.
Well, we will get to talk to him here in a few moments' time. Let's take this opportunity, though, to have a look at our race results, unofficial as always, and the elephant in the room. This was a challenging race. We came in knowing it would be challenging, Justin, but maybe not this much so. A lot of DNFs in this one.
Yeah, Michael Polasek in particular, able to pull things well, but the DNF list featured a lot of big names, down and 2 laps down. Sudik had to park it at one point. Stallone, we talked a lot of praises for, had to park it. Drivers like Cadet, Best, Matt Adams. A lot of people ended up having significant contact that ended their days.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it was single car issues and spins, mostly centered around the S's. You know, the uphill areas, and then also hog pen. All the compressions were really where they fought the most drama today. And I think that's just because when the car compresses, it just gains a whole bunch of grip in places that you weren't expecting, and then it drops it away. and that really proved to be the biggest challenge of all. But those that managed it well, I mean, think about some of those that we didn't talk a lot about today. Wan Shi Lin, 11th place in that number 30. Matt Friedman, Josh Soto, 12th and 13th. Great work there to just make it through and get a finish out of a day as crazy as this one.
Yeah, a lot of good jumps, to say the least. How about 20 to 11 for Lin? Yes. But 15th to 8th, Drury, despite the contact, got the job done as well. Look at some of the gaps, though. Stewart and Saber keeping within 3/10. You also had Drury and Coffer pretty close by a second at the final spot in the end for this race. A lot of drivers kept within each other, grouped together in their small little packs like we normally see in the drive. But today in the rain, it became who limited the mistakes in the top two. Absolutely perfect. Yeah, great race there. And let's talk to a couple of those drivers involved in some of those great battles. And the first one we're going to chat with is Nate Stewart as soon as we get sorted here momentarily. Now, see if we can find him on camera as well. I know everyone's supposed to be in here, but some have already departed. There he is. So we got Nate Stewart joining us now. Nate, P3 today in this race. It was a battle of survival. We knew that would be the case, but some drivers survived longer and better than others, and you had an epic battle with Chris in that number 39. Take us through that fight, because it was back and forth all race long. You guys both slid around quite a bit, but you managed to cling to it. Take us through that epic brawl.
It was a lot of fun with Chris. I've only ran with him a handful of times in officials and stuff before, but he ran me really clean. And, I hope I ran him clean, or at least he feels that way. But yeah, it was back and forth for most of the race. I was hoping to stay with the Michaels, but unfortunately I made a mistake and fell out of their draft. And then after that, I just kind of fell back. I got passed by a couple cars, and then the 88 or whatever his number was, I don't remember right now, went off. And then it was just me and Christopher fighting for the last podium spot. And he had a 3-second gap on me at one point, and I thought it was just over. But as soon as the track started picking up, I started getting a lot more confident. And then I was able to, run him down. And then, those last few laps, it was just a brawl back and forth between me and him. It was a lot of fun. These GR86 Cup cars are my favorite car on iRacing by far. And, that was one of the most fun races I've ever been a part of, and I really hope Chris feels the same way.
I was about to say, how was the rainy conditions like to be able to race on them today?
Yeah, they were slick, as I'm sure you guys saw. It was definitely a challenge, for sure. I've driven VIR in the past on iRacing, but this was my first excursion and wet conditions with it, so it was definitely new to me for sure. But staying out of the puddles, staying off the curbs, and then once those last handful of laps, whenever it stopped raining and the track really started drying out because we had so many cars on it, you could start to take more of a traditional line. Not fully, but it was still fairly traditional, and I feel like I played into that because I was struggling a lot in the final two corners early in the race when it was really wet, but after it started to dry out some, I was really able to find my line. And yeah, it was so much fun, dude. I hope we have more rain races.
Well, the weather is looking mostly better for the rest of the season, but we could see a couple drops here or there. Nate, great work today in that battle there with Chris and some others. So congratulations on a job well done, and we hope to see you at Road America here in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to shout out all my sponsors really quick. Sorry to take up more of your time than allotted, but I want to say thank you to SimRap Market mostly. Go to simrapmarket.com. They sell iRacing paint bases, camera packs, graphic packs, so many things to help, new and upcoming iRacing painters. Without them, they have backed me a lot through GR Cup and, eNASCAR Road to Pro. Apex Action Photography, that's me. I do iRacing screenshots. I do it for a couple people in this series. I do it in the Coke series, and just a plethora of my own little activities. And finally, Rexford Engineering, Button Box Crafter. I really need to get on them to make a website if I keep having good results like this, so people have a place to go to. Yeah, thanks to SRO for putting this on, and Kyle, Justin, thank y'all for watching us drive virtual cars around for an hour or so.
Appreciate your time, Nate. Thanks so much, and congratulations.
Yeah, man, thank you.
Nate Stewart, P3 today in the battle with Chris Severt in the number 39. Chris, holy cow, what a race between you and Nate Stewart in those closing moments. Back and forth, over and over. That was one of the most thrilling battles that we've seen in a while for a podium spot. If only the first place battle wasn't also just as good. Take us through your battle, because holy cow, we had a lot of fun watching it. I'm sure you did as well.
Hey, yeah, I'm glad you guys liked it. I'm happy I could put out a good show for you guys. Jeez, where to start? Oh, that was a really exhilarating race. I didn't realize how difficult it is to lead, and how easy it is by comparison to follow. It kind of got to this point, kind of mid-race, where the track started drying up a little bit. I really haven't practiced that much in sort of that light wet conditions. I did all my practice pretty much in the medium wet, kind of found more in the beginning of the race. So I kind of knew where I was there, and I was definitely gaining on Nate in those conditions. But as soon as it changed over, I'm taking my normal lines, and it's getting a little slow. I'm clearly losing time at Hog Pen and even Sector 1, which I thought I was really fast in the first half of the race. And then it got to the point Nate's on my back end, and I didn't want to fight too much the first time he got past, because I wanted to find out where I was losing time. And it was then that I realized, oh, okay, we can go a little bit more dry line in Hog Pen, and turns out I gained a little bit more on him in Sector 2 in some certain areas, and it was a whole shebang. And then I kind of make my moves following him through Hog Pen and going on to Turn 1, where I'm on the outside in Turn 1, where I'm kind of most comfortable. And then at the very end, coming down the back straight, he got on my left side, and up into that point in the race, I had never been side by side on the right side at the end of that back straight. So I was kind of feel like I was driving in the dark there. I didn't know where the grip was, and Nate just got me there, fair and square. Nothing I could do at that point.
Overall, though, how would you describe the experience, the rain condition? You mentioned not having a lot of experience with it. What was that like, and how much did you have to rely upon someone like, say, Martineau, who we've seen you work with in the past, that had the experience in the rain?
Cam was definitely a lot of help. We were definitely making call-outs to each other during the race as to kind of where kind of caution zones were. There were certain points where the entrance to Hog Pen was suddenly a lot slippier, and we made call-outs there. And in our own practice, we were kind of pointing out kind of where you can take the inside curve, where you have to go wide, and it was just kind of bouncing off each other. That really helped bring us both up to speed, rather than if we were just racing individually.
Well, Chris, congratulations on a top 5 run. Super fun to watch. I hope you had fun as well. It was a stressful race, I think, for everybody. But you were one of the survivors, one of the half the field that made it. That's a win in itself. But a P4 for you in the 39. Thanks so much. We'll see you at Road America.
All right, thanks. It was very fun. Nice talking to you guys.
We'll see you. All right, so Chris, P4 in that number 39. And next, we're going to talk to our P2 finisher, Michael Yanni, in the number 92. And Michael, I know that this is, again, just like we talked at COTA, just this much. But the battle that you and Michael Polasek had was, I think, one of the best, most fierce fights we've ever seen. We saw some incredible sportsmanship in that fight. I know it got tense. I know that the conditions were really challenging today, and I know that was frustrating. But 26 thousandths of a second. Your finishes in the series have been first, second, and second. You missed the season opening round. Your thoughts, I'm sure there are many, after this race at VIR.
Yep, absolutely. First of all, he showed phenomenal sportsmanship. It was so much fun to race him. I wanted to get him back, I think, after COTA, but ultimately that just wasn't to be the case today. All things considered, I think he had much better race pace than I did. He was just willing to push the limit a bit more, try the outside line, when I really was honestly too afraid to. I just, with these dynamic conditions and how quickly they change, you can go from one lap to the next with those grip in a corner. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice a chance at P1 just to hold P1 for a bit, you know? So if I went off and lost 5 seconds, well, that was the race. I couldn't catch him again. You know, it was a lot of fun. I don't think I've had any race quite like that, especially with rain being introduced recently. And I mean, it was a lot of fun. I'm pissed that I got second, of course. But if I'm gonna lose to somebody, you know, fair enough. Michael definitely deserved this one.
Dustin?
Well, I was going to say, what would you have done differently looking back now in that battle that you could have done in terms of that? Because you raced respectively, it just comes down to the drag race.
I would have just gone flat out in the final corner, and if I went off, so be it. I played it too safe, I'll be honest. I knew there was grip, I just didn't know how much, so I was like, well, let me just play it easy, and now if I could rewind, I would just go full send in that final corner and hope for the best.
Michael, again, coming up P2 so short, 0.026 seconds back. Coda was a similar story there, but just have to give you a huge congratulations for being a part of this championship and racing like that. I know we had a lot of drivers not finish this one for obvious reasons, but to have a battle like that to focus on really made it worth watching. So appreciate you being here, and we look forward to seeing you and Michael Polsek go back at it at Road America.
Yeah, hopefully this time I'll get him back. So looking forward to it. Thanks,
so.
guys.
Thanks, Michael. All right, well, Michael Polsek wins another race over Michael Yanni by 0.026. It has just been kind of your style to do it in a wild way and come into the checkers. 0.026 seconds after all the rain, after the conditions, after the track dried. It just got really chaotic there. There was some great battles, elbow to elbow. You even gave back a position, which was incredible sportsmanship. But in a battle this fierce, how do you manage to just make it that exciting and come out on top? That was so much fun to watch.
Honestly, this was just a case of everything worked out the way it did. Coming to the final lap, I wasn't really in range to make a move coming out of Oak Tree down the back straight and going to Roller Coaster. I was hoping to get alongside and then use the outside line because there's pretty much no water there, and allow me to get alongside and then probably challenge for the final couple of corners for the lead. Unfortunately, that didn't work, and I legitimately thought I had the race lost at that point. And fortunately, I was just able to get the run, and I was like, maybe there's a chance. And I just kept my foot in it and side drafted him, and I'm genuinely amazed that it ended the way it did, because this race was just such an emotional roller coaster with how tense it was, how great the fighting was, and neither of us were willing to give each other an inch. This was one of the most fun races I've ever had.
I was going to say, what was the tension like throughout in the moment itself? Because you mentioned the not giving it an inch, but you also raced respectfully and gave the space, both of you did, in that race. Michael Yanni said the same thing in his regard to the sportsmanship.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to win by just pushing someone off the track. I want to win these races fairly. I'll race hard, but I'll race you fairly. And that's sort of the respect that you got to give each other in order to survive these races. I mean, these are touring cars, so you can definitely door bang each other, but incidental light contacts, that's just part of racing. But pushing someone off the track, that's not how you win these.
Michael, championship is looking pretty good right now. We still got a couple of rounds to go, obviously, a few rounds left. But you came into this event leading the championship already. And as it's been updated now, you are leading with 113 points over Michael Yanni's 96. Moving into Road America, Barber, and Indianapolis, do you change your approach or strategy? Because it seems like it's working pretty well. So Yanni's, giving you a run for your money. How likely is it that things will swing the other way for Yanni?
I don't know. Road America is a completely different beast to VIR. Especially, I think it's going to be in dry conditions. I'm not 100% sure, but that's just going to be constant pack racing. So it's just a matter of preparing for any situation that can happen, because this series is very unpredictable, and who knows what might happen there.
Well, we want to wish you a huge congratulations on a job well done today. Another race win on your season. I know it was a challenging race, but you did a fantastic job, and appreciate your time and talking to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, Justin, what a race. And I think we came in knowing that it was going to be exciting. I don't think we came in knowing it would be that exciting, especially at the end. We saw so many offs and outs and things of the sort. I bet you post-event, there'll probably be some debrief on that. One of the biggest challenges was when you transition from the qualifying setup to the race, the tires reset to slicks. It caught some people off guard, us included. We didn't know it did that. So there, that kind of threw some things off for some drivers that just said, all right, let's try it. Let's go out on slicks. Didn't work. Some went out on wets. Didn't work for them either. But Polasek and Yanni, what a championship fight this is shaping up to be.
Yeah, especially with how both of them are so competitive, near dead even on pace. We talked about it all throughout the day today, where each of them ran near similar pace, near similar tones. That's a cat.
Yep.
But in all seriousness, it's been the cat's meow when it comes to battling between the two of them this season.
It has been a super fun battle to watch between those two, and I imagine that we're going to see plenty more of that at Road America, which is our next event here, a week prior to the real event. But we've got VIR next week in the real world. SRO America takes all their championships, including the Toyota GR Cup North America Championship, to VIR. We'll be racing next Saturday and Sunday on the GT World YouTube channel. And, after the weather has cleared up, it is looking absolutely gorgeous here at VIR. The track is dried, the race is complete, but that is going to do it for us for round 4 of the Toyota GR Cup North America eSports League. It has been a roller coaster, to use a pun. Thanks so much, everybody, and we'll see you at the National Park of Speed in a couple weeks' time.